So this isn't directly business related, but it's important, and it's a lesson I've learned multiple times this year, just over and over. And last night was a reinforcement of this lesson, but it's that everything's not about you. I recognized in about March, February, that I have made everything about me. Like when I have an interaction with somebody, I'm usually concerned about what my experience was with that person. Oh, they're not being friendly to me. They're not being very helpful. You know, I'm always thinking about that instead of just thinking about them. Like, why, what do I think was going on with that cashier? What do I think is going on with my brother when he visits? You know, like, I'm not ever thinking about, or I was always thinking about my experience and letting that impact my feelings on that person or whatever. And instead of thinking about what they're going through, you know? So I'm recognizing, especially with my husband, that I have spent so much time thinking about me and what I need and how my needs are not being met, that I really didn't think about, like, how can I support him to get his needs met. Now my husband is on his healing journey, and we were talking last night. He was talking about when he came home early from his deployment because his dad passed away. I was 7 months pregnant, and so my husband had to deal with all that because he's next of kin. He was just talking about how hard it was, and he never told me any of this. Of course, at the time I asked how he was feeling and blah blah blah, and he really just simplified his feelings. Like, he compartmentalized them and didn't really give breath to each individual thing that was impacting how he felt, and I think just kind of like shut it off. And I have some very upsetting stories from that time period when we had to go take care of his dad's business and, you know, take care of everything he had left. I have some really negative stories, and to hear about how much he was going through at that time, even though of course I did do my part and ask. To hear about that makes me feel like, wow, I have harbored resentment in my heart all this time, and he was really going through it. Like, now that he has an understanding of what was influencing him at that time and can share that with me, I'm like, no wonder he didn't meet my needs. But I have held it in my heart, like held that time against him. And it's not, I mean, it really kind of makes me sound like a bee to say, well, I'm holding the trip back to lay his dad to rest against him. It's just when somebody appears to not have emotion, you don't know that they are being emotionally impacted by anything. So that's why I was holding him accountable, because he wasn't expressing any vulnerability for what he was going through. I should have known, but you know, I was also younger, and I'm learning every day too. The other thing I've learned from recently is this book called Spirit Baby. I bought it because I'm really into spiritual things and babies, and it's about communicating with your spirit baby, but it's more so about the spirit baby world. The biggest takeaway I have is that a lot of times when we're thinking about having children, we're thinking about us, me and my partner, but we're not thinking about the third party, which is the baby, who is a soul that has their own destiny and their own karma. So a lot of things we make about us, but it's like it's also about them, or more so about them. We internalize a lot of negative things that happen in pregnancy or trying to get pregnant. And the book really showed me that a lot of times it's not like, it doesn't have to do with us, you know, like it could be maybe we're trying to get pregnant and it's not happening. It could be that the baby's not ready to come, but we make it about us and we take that on and let it destroy our self-image and self-worth, when that's just not, the baby just has a different agenda. And I shouldn't even say baby, because they're not a baby until they, you know, are conceived. Before conception, they are a soul that has lived multiple lifetimes. That's what I believe. So that really, I'm just thinking more about when I want to have another child, and I'm thinking more about, this is another entity. This person won't exist for my enjoyment. I used to be kind of jaded about having kids and feeling like it's really just making a problem. Actually, it's from this book called Sisterland, I think, by Curtis Sittenfeld. And there's a quote where one of the twins says, "Children are a problem people create and then congratulate themselves for solving." And I was really impacted by that when I read it, and I am still kind of carrying that in my heart. Like, I can't have a child and then complain about my life being difficult. So I kind of saw it like the children exist for my pleasure, my gratification, or whatever it is, but they need to exist for their own reasons. So now when I'm thinking about having my second child, I'm thinking about, okay, are we ready? And what does the baby need? What does he or she need? I have to be sensitive to whatever their experience is in the spirit world, observing us in the physical world. It's a kind of a wild concept, but I think that if people were more aware of this, I think there'd be a lot less grief associated with pregnancy, because it's just not about us. Like, it's not always punishment or reward. It really can be about them. So one story in the book was about this person. She had 3 miscarriages, so she went to the psychic and, you know, wanted to see why and to know if her next pregnancy would result in a miscarriage. Turns out, and this is kind of out there, but you know, it is, who's to say what is reasonable and what is not? We just don't know. But she actually was carrying, each pregnancy was an angel baby who wanted to experience human life. So they were conceived and had that awareness for a short time, and then went back to the spirit world, and that's all they needed. So when the psychic connected with her aura, like a guardian angel representative came forth and said, "We owe them a debt of gratitude. The 3 of us needed to have this experience, and we're done, and she can move on to have her baby that will exist with her in the physical world." And that's just like, I'm sure that she experienced a lot of pain with those miscarriages, because she felt like, you know, that life is gone, and she probably got attached to the life that was inside her, but it really wasn't even about her. So I think that can be hard to conceptualize, and I think especially if someone has already had a miscarriage, I think it can also be hard to like just do away with your grief. But it's also really cool to think that we are puzzles pieces, or game pieces, in something much larger than just like our own free will. So I think it's really important just to stop thinking about yourself all the time. Stop only focusing on what happens to you and how you felt you can't put other people's feelings in front of yours all the time, but it's important to think about what might be inhibiting this person from meeting my needs, and how can I meet that need? If you have the awareness to be able to think that, then you probably have something that you can offer to the person to help them be more of what you or other people need them to be. So that's just my little bit of advice. I hope people can receive it. I'll link the book in the description box. And I don't think I'm bound to talk, like, I don't think I have to talk about business things, but I do also think that sometimes when I read reviews or even some marketing from some business owners, it's like a lot of times it's about them. Like, maybe sometimes business owners respond to negative reviews and it's just so nasty, when they really should be thinking about, like, your feelings get hurt, so then you respond out of that instead of being like, okay, was this confusing for them? How might the product or the service not meeting their expectations have impacted whatever role, whatever bigger thing it played a part in? Like, let's say you went to get some sort of nail service and you didn't clearly understand what it was, and so your nails didn't look how you wanted them to look on your wedding day. You know, it's important to think about that stuff instead of just always kind of focusing on how we feel and starting from there. And then the marketing, I read this book called, I think it's Story Brand by Donald Miller. I've read it a couple times. It's about marketing, and it talks about making the customer the hero of the story, but all too often business owners are making themselves the hero. It's like about how much money I made, how I'm going on this trip, I'm living this life. And that can, for me as a person who's struggled with self-image and self-efficacy, like believing I can do something, when I see that, it doesn't inspire me, it intimidates me. I feel alienated by that. So I think it's a really smart strategy to focus on how can what I have to offer make the customer the hero in their own story, you know, just not focusing just on us, focus on the end goal. Start to circle back in terms of my marriage. I also read this book. Yeah, I tend to read a lot. I read this book, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And I recognize that a lot of what I'm trying to get from my husband stems from what I didn't get from my dad. And again, it's like I have this greater need for something because I didn't get it growing up. And I've put that on somebody else because I'm focused too much on me. And so once I was able to recognize that, I was able to consciously say, okay, I'm not going to be so concerned with what I need from my marriage, and at this time I'm going to focus on what my husband needs, and not even from the marriage, but what does he need in his life to evolve and to self-actualize. If I feel that I have a greater understanding than he, then I have some responsibility for sharing my wisdom to help him cover the distance to where I'm at. So it's one thing that's really made me think a lot about a lot of hardships I experienced in the past, because they were just, a lot of them were mainly caused by me thinking about me and not thinking about other people. So the last thing I'll do is share the scripture, Philippians 2. Oh, I'm late. I'm supposed to be in bed already so we can watch new show on Apple TV. Philippians 2:4. Well, I'll start with 2. I'll read. Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any compassion, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and of one mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. I don't see that passage enough. I actually have Philippians 2:2 was kind of like my key verse for my wedding, because I really do think it's about like, you guys need to want what's best for each other, and then that kind of sets the tone for everything. I felt like that was a really important scripture, and I think I'm seeing it even more. Like, if I were looking to my husband's interests, and not like in a material way, because I definitely was consumed with making my husband happy and doing things for him, like serving him, but when it came to his heart and his soul, I don't know that, well, I'm sure I didn't have the capacity or skills to bridge, to reach in and try to help him when I was still trying to help myself early in marriage. But I just was like, well, he needs this and that, like he needs this kind of healing, that kind of healing. But I wasn't like, I didn't set aside what I felt like I needed to try to help him get what he needed. So that's my transference to my audience today. Just, think about somebody close to you. Think about someone you have a relationship with, be it your spouse, parent, child, customer, and how might you be thinking, putting your own needs before theirs, in a way that is hurting both of you. Okay, I gotta go watch TV, so I will see you guys next week.